2014 Chevrolet Camaro Z/28. This is America's track star. I told them on the radio that I was pulling over a Z/28, and they said they don't make them no more, the cope says with a drawl straight off the pages of Faulkner. I told him, whatever it is, this is a badass car. This member of Alabama's finest claims that Dick Dole, Camaro lead integration engineer and driver of the Z/28 I'm riding in, put a wheel over the yellow line a mile back on Interstate 20. Dole doesn't dispute it because it's already evident that no tickets will be written today. This is a fanboy shakedown. The officer barely glances at Dole's driver's license before collecting his take. Cell phone already in hand, his question is rhetorical, do you mind if I take a few pictures? Officer Instagram can't be faulted. There's been enough hype around the Camaro Z/28 revival to launch a dozen blogs. It is retro done right, the return of a storied name applied to a modern car crafted in the same spirit as the 1967 original. Like that first Z/28 that homologated Chevy's Trans Am Racer, this new incarnation's mission is to lay down fast laps on a road course. It was developed on the Enverberg Road Atlanta, Road America, and Virginia International Raceway, as well as at GM's own Milford Road course. Fittingly, our road test covered more distance on the 2.4-mile track at Barber Motorsports Park in Birmingham, Alabama, than on public streets. The Z/28 is not the quickest, the fastest, or the most powerful Camaro, but it is the most expensive at $75,000, or more than 3 times the price of a 6-cylinder model. Its only clear-cut competitor is the $49,990 Mustang Boss 300 to Laguna Seca that Ford stopped building last year. And even then, the parallels exist in concept, not execution. With a 7.0-liter V8, carbon ceramic brakes, damper technology borrowed from Formula One, and the widest front tires on a production car, Chevy's Camaro Z/28 is a Boss 300 to fighter raised on growth hormones and testosterone. Plucked from GM's last track ASPECIAL, the 2013 Corvette Z06, the Z/28's port-injected LS7 V8 is fortified with new pistons and titanium connecting rods whose bearing inserts are now spray-coated for improved durability. There are also a cold air intake, revised exhaust headers, and a repackaged dry sump oiling system, but there's more hardware that's carryover than new under the hood. At 505 horsepower and 481 pound-feet of torque, the Z/28's LS7 makes just 6 more pound-feet than when this engine made its debut 8 years ago. Just as it did back then, the LS7 uses power whether the Z/28 is standing still or at speed. The car quakes under loping idle as heat radiates from the carbon fiber extractor and blurs the view through the windshield. Racing toward a 7,000 RPM redline, the Z/28 smears Barber's manicured landscaping as if it were a still wet watercolor, while the exhaust raucous ball rattles the cabin. 0 to 60 miles per hour passes in 4.4 seconds, and the quarter-mile clears in 12.7, by which time you're doing 116 miles per hour. True, the Z/28 isn't as quick as the ZL1 in a straight line, but that's not the point. The 6-speed manual transmission shared with the Camaro SS1 is geared for road course duty, with closer ratios passed through a shorter 3.91:1 final drive. Shifts are heavy and stiff, and the pedals are spaced at toes widths too far apart for easy heel and toe action. The substantial displacement of the naturally aspirated V8 compensates with a low end that's nearly as forceful as its top end is intense. We work over Barber using 3rd and 4th gears and every rev between 3,000 and 7,000 RPM. The Pirelli P0 Profiors are essentially street-legal racing tires so tacky that, during development testing, they occasionally stuck to the pavement better than to the wheels they were mounted on. To keep the Pirellis from slipping around the rim, the wheels on production Z/28s are media blasted to increase friction at the mating surface, a common practice in racing. The massive front tires are the same size as the rears, a remedy first used on the 1 to address the Camaro SS penchant for understeer. Here, though, the rubber is sized up to 305/30 and mounted on smaller, lighter 19-inch forged aluminum wheels. When warm, the tires stick to the pavement like for wads of melted Wrigley's. In Barber's long, mid-speed corners we saw as much as 1.06 grams of lateral stick, despite the damp track and temperatures struggling to top 40 degrees. The Z/28 is neutral and responsive at the limits, and the Torsen-type limited slip differential prudently doles out power on corner exit. The flat-bottom steering wheel has the same heft and on-center sharpness as the Camaro ZL1S. Unfortunately, it lacks the stimulating feedback experienced in the best sports cars. The cross-drilled carbon ceramic brake discs are clamped by 6-piston front and 4-piston rear calipers that bite just as hard after 50 minutes of lapping as they do on the first laps. From 70 miles per hour, they haul the Z/28 to a stop in 155 feet. There are, of course, stiffer springs and bushings, and the downsized wheels allowed engineers to drop the center of gravity by 1.3 inches and use smaller and lighter anti-roll bars. The cornerstones of the suspension are for spool valve dampers, a technology used by Red Bull Racing as it claimed for Formula One championships between 2010 and 2013. Until now, the closest these shocks have come to a production car is Aston Martin's $1.8 million 177. Spool valve dampers don't use electronic components or magnetic fluid, and they are neither driver adjustable nor adaptable to road conditions. Instead, the spool valve's merit lies in tailor-shaped internal ports that improve the precision and effective range available to engineers as they tune the shocks. They work magnificently. The Z/28 transitions from left to right braking and acceleration with nearly imperceptible load transfer. It is stoic and stable as it bounds over the curbing and hunkers into hard braking through the tight corkscrew of Barber's 8 and 9 turns. On the road, firm doesn't mean harsh, either. As we bomb over a bridge deck that is set 2 inches above the road that abuts it, I tense in anticipation of a jarring impact that never materializes. Even without the ZL1S magnetic dampers, the Z/28 retains ride height sensors at each wheel to feed data to the 5-mode performance traction management system that determines when to straighten the car with the brakes, reduce torque via engine management, or feed power to the rear wheels. The sensors also enable a fly mode, in which the engine controller holds torque constant when the car goes airborne, rather than cut fuel as a typical Chevy does. Why doesn't every car have a fly mode? And yet Chevy made great efforts to keep the Z/28's tires firmly in contact with the ground. The front splitter, the wheel arch extensions, and the rear spoiler are all part of a functional if not beautiful aero kit that makes 150 pounds of downforce at 150 miles per hour when an accessory gurney flap is screwed onto the back of the spoiler. Chevrolet stripped its gold bow tie off the front grille. In its place is a hollowed-out emblem, cheekily called the flow tie, allowing extra air into the engine bay at the rate of 88 cubic feet per minute. Camaro chief engineer Alpenzer claims the Z/28 team took out everything that didn't make it go faster or wasn't required by law. So the car comes without air conditioning and only a single speaker to sound the seat belt reminder chime. Floor mats aren't included, and the emergency tire inflation kit is left out unless you buy in Rhode Island or New Hampshire, where it's mandatory equipment. The engineers even replaced the rear glass with a paint 0.01 inch thinner to nix 0.9 pound. We won't be talking about a true lightweight Camaro until at least 2016, though, when the car is redesigned on the Alpha platform. The Z/28 we tested was equipped with the sole option package 5 extra speakers and air conditioning and weighed 3862 pounds. It's not light, but that is 35 pounds shy of a 1 million more than 300 pounds slimmer than a ZL1. Even without looking at the scales, we feel it's a stretch to say Chevrolet stripped the Z/28 of everything that didn't make it faster. The car still has carpeting, the headliner, full Indurail or trim, and lighter rear seats. The wide Rica rows are all-day comfortable rather than track-day snug. Other than the flat-bottom steering wheel and rescale speedo and tachometer, from the driver's seat the Z/28 could easily be confused for a 6-cylinder Camaro. If you want to convince someone how serious this car is, you'll have to pop the trunk, where there isn't a single piece of plastic trim or carpet. Or drive the Z/28 on the track. Because that's really the only way to show off cornering this flat, grip this abundant, power this visceral, and a car this badass.